Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with a controversial view of The Last House on Dead End Street. The Last House on Dead End Street was filmed in 1972, premiered in 1973, and finally got a wide release in 1977. Alternate titles for the movie include The Cuckoo Clocks of Hell, At the Hour of Our Death, and, wait for it, The Funhouse. You might have guessed, The Last House on Dead End Street is the film with which Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse was confused for the Video Nasties list. As discussed in last week's controversial view video, Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse was never meant to be a video nasty. It's clear as day, though. The Last House on Dead End Street, or The Funhouse, is absolutely worthy of being on that list. In fact, this may very well be one of the most deserving films to be considered a video nasty, even though technically it isn't one. Between the sex, nudity, graphic violence, and gore, Last House on Dead End Street would have been one of the nastiest video nasties. Now, with all of that out of the way, there are plenty of other controversies surrounding this film to discuss. First, let's talk about this ultra-rare Sun Video distribution VHS release. Sun Video released the movie in 4 different versions. 2 cut versions under the title Last House on Dead End Street, the uncut version under Last House on Dead End Street, which is this tape right here, and a cut version under the title The Funhouse. Oddly enough, the catalog number for every Sun Video release was identical. Basically, you had no way of knowing which version you had until you watched it. Unless, of course, you had the Funhouse version. Fortunately, as I said, I was able to obtain the uncut version. The original cut of the movie, which was titled The Cuckoo Clocks of Hell, allegedly ran for 175 minutes. That version was never released, and the only remaining print is rumored to have been stored in a New York film lab. All of the credits in The Last House on Dead End Street were pseudonyms. No one publicly admitted to making this film until the year 2000. Roger Watkins wrote it, directed it, and starred in it. I reviewed The Last House on Dead End Street during the Slashback Challenge, and I stand by what I said. Roger Watkins looked like a deranged Dwight Schrute in this. It's like seeing Rainn Wilson in a very different role, even though it's not actually Rainn Wilson. Most of the dialogue in the film was ad-libbed, and most of the cast and crew was made up of college students. One of the characters was played by Roger Watkins' professor. Going back to the release history of the movie, Last House on Dead End Street was shelved for nearly 5 years because one of the actresses sued Roger Watkins over the use of her nude scenes. Then, when it finally did get a wide release in 1977, Watkins didn't find out until 2 years later, in '79. Someone recognized him on the street after seeing it on the big screen. There are still rumors floating around that the theater in which the movie first premiered was burned down in an ensuing angry riot. The Last House on Dead End Street is definitely disturbing. Like I said, I do feel it would have been one of the most deserving video nasties had it actually been considered one. In a way, you can still say it is, because obviously they confused Last House on Dead End Street, or The Fun House, with Tobe Hooper's The Fun House. This is a video nasty. It's just not technically on the list. I also strongly believe it would have been one of the movies to be prosecuted. When I first watched this and reviewed it for the Slashback Challenge, I was sort of neutral about it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't particularly love it either. After revisiting it a few years later with Jason for this video, my mind has changed. I found myself falling back down the rabbit hole with this. I loved it. It has that distinct 70s charm that I love, and I must be nuts because there's something comforting about it. I love the rawness and the grittiness. Watching it, it feels like you're watching something you shouldn't be watching. It's like seeing a snuff film you're not meant to see. That's ironic, considering the plot of this. There is so much gratuitous nudity, including full frontal. The gore effects are great. I love the location and the sets are awesome. The entire movie has a dreamlike quality to it. It's haunting and surreal. Oh man, and I gotta say, the part with the dog cracks me up every time. Nothing bad happens to the dog. Don't worry. It also features maybe one of my favorite masks in horror history. And I can definitely understand why a lot of people consider this to be a very scary movie. It just looks so real. At the time of its release, many people believed they were actual murders being depicted on film. The fact that pseudonyms were used and no one knew who made the film added to this rumor. Clearly, The Last House on Dead End Street is a controversial movie. This is probably one Jason and I should have discussed sooner in this series, but I'm glad we saved it for this month, with our theme being Video Nasties. I do recommend checking this out if you haven't seen it, but if you're a bit too squeamish, that's fine. We watched it so you don't have to. This is just my controversial view. As always, please be sure to check out Jason's as well to hear what he has to say about The Last House on Dead End Street. Have you seen it? If so, what do you think of it? Comment below and let me know. Which controversial movie will we view next? Check back soon to find out. Until then, remember, physical media matters. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that thumbs up and, be kind, subscribe.